That was a fun one. The Arizona Coyotes didn't collapse in the second period. In fact, they kept a lead the entire time against the Seattle Kraken and remain undefeated against the expanded team. We're going to talk about this game, what stood out to us, as well as who stood out to us, all on today's episode of Locked On Coyotes.
You're Locked On Coyotes, your daily podcast on the Arizona Coyotes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the show, everybody. I'm Robyn Leonio. That's Carl Pavlik. This is our post-game show as the Arizona Coyotes take a 5-2 win over the Seattle Kraken at the Climate Pledge Arena in Seattle. What a win it was, Carl. I'm glad this happened because, well, let's just put it this way. They needed to bounce back after what happened last night.
Absolutely. Last night's game was really bad, and I don't think the Coyotes played a perfect game, but this is just a great result. It is a much-needed confidence boost for this team.
We've talked about keys to the game multiple times, and one of the big things is we said don't collapse in the second period. Don't collapse in the second period. They didn't do that. In fact, they scored an extra goal in the second period to pad their lead a little bit more because it went first period was 1-0, second period was 2-0.
Yep.
How about that?
Yeah, they didn't collapse. It was looking really rough for I think the first half of that period, but like they started to build up some steam, and yeah, they built off their lead, and just really good to see. It's kind of funny at this point in being a Coyotes fan, we're just like, yeah, there wasn't a 3-goal collapse in the second period. That is awesome. That is a point of pride. Yeah, more of that, please.
But I mean, but that really just tells us that, like, and I will be frank with you. Obviously, as you mentioned, that first bit, the second period was a little rough, but they didn't allow any goals. Then, this still, Carl, at least to me, I'm not sure if I can think of another game that can be a more complete game, like a full 60-minute, like as close to a full 60-minute complete game.
Yeah, it's tough, especially for the Coyotes this season. They haven't had a lot of complete games. This is one of the better efforts, I would say.
It's a rare effort of one where we're actually pretty satisfied.
Yeah, I think the most important moment in the game was the Anton Stroman goal, because we're always talking about the second period collapse. We've also seen third period collapses. Mm-hmm. So, Colin Blackwell gets on the Kraken on the board. Stroman and then less than a minute and a half later, Stroman regains that 2-goal lead. And
Stroman of all people, too.
Stroman right? Of all people, I believe on a backhand. Which crazy. Was not expecting that. But I think the reason these collapses happen is because the Coyotes get stuck in their own head or whatever, and it just keeps building. And when they score a goal, that stops that momentum, and that regains that control of the game. And we don't see that enough. I want more of that. It's fine that they scored. Just regain that cushion, or just have a good shift.
And that was a perfect example. Stroman's goal right after, it was the Coyotes and Stroman were like, nope, we're not taking this. We're going to take that one right back from you.
Yeah. I love the killer instinct of the Coyotes when they're at their best. And we saw that with the 2 empty netters. They're just like, no, we're going to keep building off this lead. I don't care that we're up. We're just going to keep building. And I want to see more of that. And I want that to translate in future seasons when they have more skilled players.
When we have the future players from the Roadrunners and from the WHL and from other prospect areas come out
Yeah,
and shine.
yeah. I want Dylan Gunther to get many a hat trick with a empty net goal, just because. Why not? It's a hat trick. Doesn't matter.
Exactly. And this is obviously, and again, we mentioned that's down the road.
Yeah,
And we will be happy with what we can take now. And that's why we will gladly take this win as much as we can. Even though the Kraken aren't a good team, we'll gladly take this win.
absolutely. Yeah, and credit to the Kraken. They looked like they were in this game up until the very end. Like once the Coyotes got that empty netter, like that really just kind of put it home. But up until then, it could have been like anyone's game.
Which is crazy. Which one thing I always found crazy too, because thinking about obviously the empty netters were made it a lot bigger of a score than the actual game shows. But um, in the previous years, obviously Grubauer was previously a Colorado Avalanche player, and Coyotes hated playing him.
Yeah.
And now they got a win over him, a solid one too.
Yeah. I do kind of wonder what like how this season, how Grubauer is going to be reevaluated. Like just what his career is going to be, which is very interesting because we saw a very thing with Marc Andre Fleury going the opposite way, where it seemed like he was washed up going to the expansion team, and then after a couple years, it's like, oh my god, he's still got it. I feel like Grubauer may be like, oh, he's playing at the top of his game with the Avalanche, goes to the expansion team, and people are gonna be like, was he doing that good, or was that the system? I don't know. I don't want to,
Or is it just how good Colorado was?
yeah. It could be. We have often seen like really good teams mask average goaltending, and you go to a different system. Like, I think that's been I wouldn't say the really good team part, but systems masking average goaltending has been a key aspect of the Coyotes for a lot of years.
Absolutely. But we still got more to talk to on this episode of Locked On Coyotes. We are going to talk about some of the players that stood out to us, some of the other things that helped this Coyotes team in the contribution to a 5-2 win over the Seattle Kraken. All of that, plus a little bit more coming up on this episode of Locked On Coyotes. But first, a quick word from Carl.
So, BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before as football continues its march through the playoffs right up to the big game in a couple weeks. BetOnline.net remains the best spot for all your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. And it's not just football. BetOnline has up to the minute information on pro and college hoops, NHL, boxing, UFC, along with or live real-time updates on current games. Don't wait to take advantage of all the new amazing offers available for the 2022 season. Bet online, where the game starts.
All right, so back here on Locked On Coyotes. Thanks again to everyone for making Locked On Coyotes your first listen every day. Make sure to also check out Olympic Hockey Daily presented by Locked On NHL, a bonus hockey podcast covering all of the action in Beijing. You can find it on the Locked On NHL podcast feed. It's available and free wherever you get your podcast. Once again, both of us are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Now let's get more to this. Once again, Coyotes 5-2 win over the Seattle Kraken. And Carl, lately, a lot of the wins that we talk about for Arizona, we really put a huge shine onto, one man in Karel Vejmelka. And he had a good game because he was riding a back-to-back. This was the second game straight he had to play, and the first game was not a good game.
Yeah.
And so I was a little thinking, like, what is he going to do on a back-to-back? This is the first time we're seeing a goalie for the Coyotes have to play a back-to-back that way. So I think he did phenomenally. 34 save game for him.
Absolutely. And I kind of understood why he was giving this game. Like, as soon as it was announced, it's like, Yeah, he didn't have the best game last night, but just throw him back in there. Don't let him dwell on that loss. Like give him a win against a weaker team because, we talked about in the previous show, the Vancouver Canucks, they're not good. They're probably not going to make the playoffs. The Seattle Kraken are one step below that. So, make sure Malcolm can get a win, and that's important for his, mental state.
And I think the crazy thing, and I think the thing I love the most is we talk about how much we love Vejmelka and how much contributes to a lot of the wins. But in this case, although yes, he was a huge contributor, he wasn't the only one this time. We're not saying that he carried the team on his back this game, because there were some pretty good contributors in this game. We talked about Anton Strawman being able to essentially fend off the collapse by essentially getting one right back. But a 2-point night for Phil Kessel.
Yep.
That's a good performance from him. Plus Nick Schmaltz, 2 goals. One of them was the second empty netter. But contributions all around.
Yeah, Alex Galchenyuk with a goal and an assist. He has looked phenomenal since the year turned over. I have loved seeing him play with the top two lines. I thought, he had a really good game. But it was nice to see the Coyotes offense kind of show up. We so often don't see them. But yeah, we got, I'm not going to say balanced scoring because it's mostly, the top guys, and Anton Stroman, but we got like a good mixture of offense from the Coyotes.
I'm counting on here 9 players for the Arizona Coyotes got on the score sheet.
Yeah, which is just huge. Like, and again, offense has been a consistent problem with the Coyotes, and it was good to see. It clicks. When it rains, it pours, and the Coyotes got 5 goals.
I know, and again, that's a rare appearance in itself, because the fact that they're only scoring a little more than 2 goals a game, and the fact that they scored 5 this time. How much did they score the last time they beat Seattle?
Was it also 5?
I want to say it was also 5, because it sounds like that.
Let me check and see. It was definitely a high-scoring game.
I'm bringing out the box score right now. Yeah, that was a 5-4 win.
And we predicted it would be
We
over
predicted the
game.
over. We got the over.
Yeah. So yeah. I do kind of love the idea that the Coyotes just match up really well against the Kraken.
I know, right? It's absolutely amazing, because I was going to mention this a little bit later, but let's just go ahead and go straight to it. And I already mentioned it kind of at the beginning. The Coyotes undefeated against the expansion team.
The Coyotes have played 2 games against the Kraken, and they have won both. 6 of one, half dozen of the other. It just when you say undefeated against them, it sounds a little bit more grandiose.
It sounds funner that way, doesn't it?
Yeah. I do. I love the idea of the Coyotes sweeping the Kraken in the first year.
They've got one more shot at it later in March.
I feel like the Coyotes are just in a position, like, because they're like bottom of the league in a lot of people's opinions, and expansion teams tend to get like a lot of,
slack.
And it feels like it's a natural rivalry, and it felt like that with the Vegas Golden Knights, and I would just love if we can get that with the Kraken.
That's what we're kind of hoping for, right? We want to see kind of build some natural rivalries. Also, let's get a little bit of, hate in there the fact that it's the team that kicked us out of the Pacific.
Yeah,
So
there's absolute reasons for Coyotes fans to dislike the Seattle Kraken. And I just want the Coyotes to give the Kraken fans a reason to hate us.
and that's just finding ways to beat them despite being a basement team right
Yeah,
now.
yeah. Despite being one of the worst teams in the NHL, still finding ways to win.
I like how we had to say one of right now because we cannot claim the title of the worst right now because we already know who that is. I'm sorry, Scott and Laura. I know it probably sucks, but
Uh, it's oh, I always like to think of teams in kind of like groups. There's never one worst. There's usually three teams battling for that worst and holding the title throughout the season. And the Coyotes are definitely one of those teams.
Coyotes, Montreal, and Ottawa right now
Yeah, I
with
mean
the
that.
with the Kraken right next to New Jersey, probably in the next tier.
How are the Sabres doing?
I think they're. I think they. I don't know. How are they actually doing? They are
35
7
points.
so 35.
Yeah, between the Canadians and the Senators. So yeah, there's a lot of teams. Surprisingly, there's a lot of teams that are doing bad this year.
Yeah,
Uh,
but there's a pretty big discrepancy from those teams to Arizona and Montreal.
yeah. Um. Yeah. This was but yeah, the Coyotes are a bad team that's beaten the Kraken. And honestly, it feels like they're just matching up pretty well against them.
I mean, it made for some fun hockey to watch, right? Like, because you actually saw a decent matchup versus like a couple other times when like it was just a surprise, like either a surprise win, or it's just something that came out of nowhere, or let's put it this way: like when the Coyotes played the Golden Knights, what was the score for that one? Like 7-1 or whatever it was. Like that was just freaking embarrassing, and that was just a complete and utter mismatch. Like
Yeah.
the mismatch games are just not even fun to watch.
No.
So
No. They're just really depressing.
yeah, and even the mismatch games are the lower scoring, where it just looks like boring hockey.
Yeah. Except for in those like the Karel Vejmelka 1-0 shutout win
Those are
mismatch
different. Those
game.
are those are different because that's
Yeah.
those are just Karel Vejmelka being Karel Vejmelka.
Uh, like those are the only fun mismatch games to watch where you're just like, oh wow, this is can they successfully not screw this up? Uh, and somehow they find a way to do it.
Uh, I've mentioned it several times before. The future is bright for that goaltender.
Oh yeah, and he had a good outing. It's rare that we get to talk about other people, but he definitely had a good game. Made some key saves.
And again, as I mentioned earlier, key saves on the second night of a back-to-back. Like, can't stress it enough because that's huge.
Yeah. So the Coyotes next play the Tampa Bay Lightning. Do you think they start Prosvetov again?
We'll have to see. We will have to see. But you know what? Let's give a little mini preview to the Tampa Bay Lightning in just a sec. Before we get to that, though, let's let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by Rock Auto. The ever-increasing number of makes and models is now impossible for your local chain auto parts store to stock all the parts you need. Why endure often pointless or seemingly intimidating questioning is rather see an LX or an EX, or wait for the person behind the counter orders the parts on their computer, choosing only the brand their warehouse happens to carry. You have computers with access to rockauto.com at home and in your pocket. Save time and money when using Rock Auto. Why choose to spend 30, 50, even 100% more for the same parts from a chain store or car dealership? When you can go to Rock Auto, a family-owned business serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years, and their prices will be a lot reliably low for every customer. And I want to give you guys a perfect example. I'm looking at stuff for my Mustang because it's due for a lot of freaking repairs and a lot of maintenance work. Brake rotors, or like I can get like a whole pack for like a whole pack of like 4 brake rotors for the price of one at one of those chain auto parts stores. That's ridiculous. That's so much money saved by going to Rock Auto. I want you guys to check it out yourself, though. Go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck. And while you're there, write Locked On in their How Did You Hear About Us box so they know that we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com. So let's finish things off here, Carl. Obviously, yes, we are happy. The Arizona Coyotes took a 5-2 win over the Seattle Kraken because, well, we need games like this every now and then. Because unfortunately, we're gonna have a tough matchup, and we're not gonna go in depth because that'll be later in the week. I suppose it'll be on Friday morning's episode. But we got the Tampa Bay Lightning coming back when we come back home, and that's not gonna be a fun game.
No, it's not. This seems like a game where the Coyotes can like build momentum and maybe catch the Lightning by surprise. Could always be a trap game, you never know, but it's not looking good when the Coyotes are matched up against the Tampa Bay Lightning.
No, it's not. I mean, when the Coyotes went on that East Coast road trip, too. I mean, come on.
Yeah. I mean, the one good thing I will say is the Coyotes will not play for a week after the Lightning game, so no reason to not go all out.
And that's when they play LA, which is a rivalry. So like it's like, all right, go all out, rest a little bit, and then do it again against your rivals.
Yeah, absolutely. Like that's kind of the benefit of the Coyotes season not being too affected by COVID, not having too many games rescheduled. They still get somewhat of a break. They definitely had quite a few, but not as many as some of the other teams.
No, so that's what makes things good. Yes, I am like obviously you've heard me complain about the back-to-backs, but they get more the Coyotes actually have more time off despite that, which is crazy. Because they had very few games had to be scheduled. The Lightning was one, the Kings were another, and then so that it's just these next 3 games are also rescheduled games: Lightning, Kings, and Stars.
Gotcha. Yeah. I mean, like it's kind of like if you've ever worked a job where you could do 4 10s as opposed to 5 8-hour shifts. It's like that. You're just getting it all out of the way and then getting a lot of rest in there. And it can definitely be stressful. I am not necessarily looking forward to the Kings Stars back to back. That seems like it could potentially be rough.
I mean,
But
what's good about that is the Coyotes are at home.
yeah,
A home back-to-back is much easier.
this is going to be one of their longest homestands, I think, in a very long time. I know, isn't it all season?
Yeah, that's a 7-game homestand.
Yeah.
Wait. 8-game homestand. I miscalculated that.
That's let's see what the Coyotes can do. I know sometimes it can be beneficial to get on the road because you can simplify their game, but 8 games at home, you got to take advantage of something like that.
Yeah, I mean, what's the best thing is, and I'm pretty sure any player will say this, is there's something special about being able to sleep in your own bed.
Yeah. Yeah. Not have to worry about like it was a 30-minute plane ride apparently from Vancouver to Seattle. Or not that. I think it was 24 minutes. But that's still taking a plane and dealing with bags and hotels and all that. You get to just go home. Like, it's something beautiful.
Exactly. Exactly. But
Oh, real quick, during the game, there was actually one piece of Coyotes news that was announced. Two former Coyotes will be representing the U.S. Olympics team. Andy Mealy will be serving as captain. Aaron Ness as going to be wearing an A.
there you go. Aaron Ness was a mainly taxi squad player last year, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And Andy Mealy spent a lot of time with the Roadrunners.
Oh
So
yeah. I feel like I spent most of my early Five for Howling days writing about how Andy Mealy was just a couple of seasons away from breaking through. Uh, but I have been following his career for a long time. It's great to see him being able to represent his country.
yeah, and yes, we are sad that NHL players aren't at the Olympics, which is why we have all these games. But let's be real here. The seeing some of these players who didn't get their shot in the NHL, but still like made some pretty good contributions previously, and they're having the opportunity to represent their countries at the Olympics. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, and it's definitely like a lot of players who I think Coyotes fans are going to be aware of. I saw Mikhail Bodker just had a goal in one of their games, so uh, I think there's no NHL players, but still plenty of reason to pay attention to the Olympics.
There's always reason to pay attention to the Olympics,
Yeah,
um, because some of them could be future NHLers.
yeah, definitely. I mean,
A lot of
especially
them,
since
a lot of them are in college.
yeah, college players, European players, never know who's going to be in the NHL.
Exactly. So pay attention, people. Also, women's hockey. Let's be real.
Yeah,
We love it. We absolutely love it.
yeah, I mean, hockey in general is just fun to watch. You don't need to always watch for like the future potential of an NHL player. I think we sometimes forget that because our job is talking about it in that perspective. But yeah, hockey in general is just really fun.
Yep. And that's what I love about being a hockey fan.
Yep.
But we are just about out of time for this episode of Locked On Coyotes. If you like what you heard, don't forget to leave a review, like, comment, subscribe if you're yet to already. We're available everywhere that you get your podcast. We once again want to thank everybody for making Locked On Coyotes your first listen every day. Now we want you guys to go ahead and check out our friends at Locked On Bets because we do a lot of betting stuff here. And if you listen to our advice, you would have cashed in because we both picked take the points and pick the over, both of which fell for you guys. So if you took our advice, congratulations. You're a little bit richer depending on how much you bet. But locked on bets, you're able to do a lot more rather than just Coyotes games. You can do it all: hockey, NFL, NBA, college hoops. They do it all. Be sure to go and check them out. Free and available on all platforms, including on YouTube. But once again, don't forget to interact with us on social media. We are on Facebook, facebook.com/LockedOnCoyotes, on Instagram, LockedOnCoyotes, on Twitter at LO_Coyotes, and for us personally at Robyn_Leano. That is me, Robyn with the Y_LEANO. Carl Pavlik is Carl Pavlik FFH. Interact with us, ask a question you might have. We might answer right back or on a future episode of the Locked On Coyotes podcast. Thanks again, everyone, for listening to today's episode. Hope you guys are staying safe out there. Hope you guys are staying healthy. And don't forget to howl on.